What is the best mouse? Today we're going to put that to the test. And that, my friends, is the sound of a cheap $10 gaming mouse. But hey, what's up guys, it's Chipper here, and it's great to be back. So massive shout out to everybody who showed support in the last video. Anyways, I picked up a new camera and I'm ready to step my game up. So like and subscribe and let's get it, boys. Let's go. So the first mouse we're going to take a look at is the cheapest mouse on this list. And it's literally the cheapest gaming mouse I found on Amazon. It was $10. When you shake it, you can hear like the parts inside. Essentially, it looks like a very premium mouse and it seems like it'd be really good based on looks alone, but the hardware in this thing is absolutely atrocious. The sensor is awful, it's heavy, the scroll wheel is super mushy, it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't have a comfortable shape, it's not good to use. However though, you know, the RGB is pretty sick for the price. The wire is terrible, it's way too heavy, it slows it down. Even if you have a mouse bungee, it still doesn't matter. And also, yeah, the sensor is just abysmal, so I wouldn't recommend picking up this mouse if you want to actually play well. Next up, we have the glorious Model D, and one of the best parts about it is the fact that it's super light, it has beautiful RGB, the sensor is really solid, the shape is incredibly comfortable if you have like larger hands. You can always get the Model O as well. And the shell is actually a honeycomb design, so that actually reduces the weight by a decent amount. Also, the wire's pretty good, the clicking is pretty good. Everything about it is overall really solid, so the glorious Model D is a pretty solid mouse for the price. Next up is the Logitech G502. And this is a really popular mouse, obviously. However, it has a couple downsides. So it is comfortable. It's a very comfortable and ergonomic mouse to hold. And also it has plenty of extra buttons you can press. But the main downside is it's heavy. It is very heavy. And if you want to do any kind of precise aiming in CS, this mouse, I mean, it works, but it's not optimal compared to lighter mice. This is more of a mouse for like, you know, RTS games or like, you know, like World of Warcraft. But for first-person shooters, it doesn't really cut it. Next up, we have the SteelSeries Neon Rider mouse. So this one has a sick Neon Rider design and it actually matches the mouse pad that I bought. However, though, the cable is it's rubberized and it's not that great of a cable. You know, it can definitely affect your aiming. Also, the shape can be a little bit uncomfortable depending on your hands. But on the bright side, though, it does glide well. Like the skates on the bottom are really solid. And it also is a little bit on the heavier side, so it's not ideal for CS, but it can work. And, you know, the sensor is good enough. It's not up to the same standards as a few of the other mice we're going to be checking out. And overall, like, the mouse wheel just doesn't feel that good. Like, you don't get a lot of haptic feedback when you use it. Speaking of which, next up, guys, we have the Corsair M65 Pro. And this is actually the gaming mouse that I used for years back in the day. But the problem is, it's heavy and it's made out of aluminum, obviously. So, I mean, that's a huge downside. The scroll wheel isn't very tactile. It doesn't feel good. The shape is pretty uncomfortable, at least for my hands. And however, the sensor is decent and you can hit some shots if you're precise, but I mean, the weight is obviously going to hold you back. And then of course, it also has a really sick LED effect where it basically shines on your mouse pad. And it just, in my opinion, this is probably one of the best uses of RGB in a mouse. But I mean, other than that, it's not the best mouse for CS. Let's just put it like that. Next up, we have the Xtrfy M4, which is a Swedish made mouse. So this is basically like the Model D in the sense that it has a honeycomb design, but it's also in the same shape as like the Zowie mice, which is awesome. However, though, I mean, the thing about Zowie is they have multiple different versions depending on the size of your hands. And the Xtrfy M4 only has one. So if it's too big or too small, then there's not much you can do. However, though, it's super light. It has a really good sensor. The wire is incredible. You know, of course, like I said before, made in Sweden. And the shape is pretty good. Like, I actually prefer it over the Model D, but it's also more expensive too. Anyways, next up, we have the G Pro Wireless, the OG. The cool thing about this mouse was it set a new precedent. It's wireless, but there's no latency. It's just as responsive as any old wired mouse, which is amazing because before the G Pro Wireless came out, wireless mice were kind of at a disadvantage. There was always more latency, but you know, Logitech stepped their game up and they made something incredible. It also weighs 80 grams. It's fairly comfortable depending on how you hold it. If you have smaller hands, you can straight up just palm it, but if your hands are bigger, what I recommend is doing a fingertip grip because that gives you the most precision. However, it's not the most comfortable grip, but that's just the one that works the best for me. And also it's pretty expensive. Like, this is not a cheap mouse. I mean, you're pretty much paying for quality, but we have another mouse that we're going to be checking out next that is actually a little bit better. For a wireless mouse, it's incredibly light, but there's a mouse that's even better that's also made by Logitech, and that is the G Pro Super Light. So they reduced the weight from 80 grams to 60 grams, which is, it's incredibly noticeable. Like, you definitely notice the 25% difference. Like, I feel like I hit shots more consistently on the Super Light versus the Pro Wireless. You know, it has the exact same shape as the Pro Wireless, but it doesn't have the additional side buttons. It only has like 2 of the side buttons. So if you're left-handed, there's not much you can do. You know, this is a right-handed mouse. Also, it doesn't have an ARGB, so that's a thing. However, though, the sensor is literally one of the best sensors on the entire market. It's precise, it feels good, and this is a mouse that you could legitimately go pro with. Also, they improved the mouse feet on the bottoms. So over the cap where you can store the dongle or wirelessly charge it, there's actually a new puck. It's optional, obviously, but you can get extra mouse feet on the bottom, essentially, so it can glide even better. Because in my opinion, the bigger the mouse feet, the better. I mean, it's basically the same as the G Pro Wireless, except it's better in every single way except for RGB. Next up, guys, we have the Razer Viper Ultimate. So this one's actually pretty light too. It's wireless. I do prefer the shape over the G Pro like Super Light. However, though, it is a little bit heavier. It's about 69 grams, I believe. So, I mean, it's still fairly light, but however, though, it does have an incredible sensor and there is no latency at all that you can notice. Plus, it's cheaper than the Super Light. So it all just depends on, you know, personal preference, budget, and all those kind of things. And now, guys, we have the Razer Viper 8K. And this is pretty much the gaming mouse of the future. But right now, there's only a handful of games that actually support it. If you're playing on LAN, you will definitely notice a difference. So in my gameplays, I basically tested against bots, like to basically make it as consistent as possible because, you know, online you could have like 30 ping or 80 ping. Like there's no way of getting super consistent ping every single time. And also the skill level of the players like fluctuates a lot. So just, I feel like testing it against bots makes it just more consistent overall. And you get a feel of like how the mouse would actually play on LAN. And the Razer Viper 8K is freaking incredible. Like, this is the best mouse I've ever used when you have 0 ping. But when you have to compensate for lag, then it doesn't really make as much of a difference. But it's light, it has a great wire, the shape is incredible, it's the same as the Viper Ultimate. It has a top tier sensor, and it's affordable too. I think it's like an $80 mouse or a $60 mouse, but the problem is it's not wireless. If you have a mouse bungee, it's almost as good as wireless, but it's not quite the same. Most mice only have 1,000 hertz polling rate. This one does 8,000, which is just ridiculous. In the right circumstances, it actually is better. Like, it is more responsive by a couple milliseconds, but the only way to really benefit is to play on a 240 or 360 hertz monitor. If you're stuck on a 60 or 144 hertz, probably not really going to notice any difference. But I'm sure in the future they're going to release a version that is going to be 8K wireless, and also more games will support it because, you know, newer technologies usually take a while to get picked up by game developers. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, like, comment, share, subscribe. And honestly, guys, it is great to be back. And I appreciate each and every single one of you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys again. So I'm going to be uploading 2 really high quality videos a month for the foreseeable future because I just want to make better, higher quality content. Anyways, with all that being said, thank you so much for watching. It's Turbo, and I'm out, and I'm Rusty. Peace.